Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. You're all welcome again to the debate. And we are still continuing this week with agriculture. And today we want to see how we can make the agricultural business attractive for youths in Africa to achieve the Agenda 2063. That's our topic for today. And I am your host, Mbolifo Elvis Ambi, and I will be in studio with Professor Ruben Adiolu Alabi, who is going to chill us again for an hour how we can encourage, how we can motivate, how we can cause our youths to be attractive to the agric business so that we equally can fight the food insecurity situations that we have been talking already about in our past editions. Join me, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome Professor Adiola Alabi Ruben. I have mixed the names, but he still can recognize himself with that. Professor, you are welcome again to the studio. And today we are looking at how we can make the agricultural business attractive for youth in Africa so that we can achieve the Agenda 2063. You're welcome in studio again, Professor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. As you have rightly said, we want to look at how to make agricultural business attractive to our youth in Africa. Um, by the way of introduction, we have said it on this platform that majority of the Africans are youth. 60% of them are below the age of 25. These youth constitute more than 60% of on the unemployed in Africa. And we know the correlation between unemployment and conflict and crimes and poverty. And so we should be concerned how to get these youth engaged. And I've already said it on this platform before that more than 60% of these unemployed youth, they live in rural area where agriculture is the main source of livelihood. And we have already said it here before that 60% of the world total uncultivated arable land is located in Africa. So we have a situation where we have group of youths, we have a situation where majority of them are unemployed, we have a situation where they live in rural area, and we have a situation where they live, most of the land is uncultivated. The additional information is that 71% of these university undergraduates, they don't get employed in the first 6 years of their graduation. Meaning that the first 6 years of their graduation, they are roaming the streets, they say they are still looking for a job, and some of them are trained in agricultural enterprises on agricultural sectors, agricultural production, agricultural processing. So there is a challenge. You have these people that are trained in the university, in college of agri, college of education, but they say they are looking for a job, whereas the land is there, and they still claim to be unemployed for the first 6 years of their graduation. So we said that agricultural sector possesses a significant development potential if we can make use of it to generate ample, decent, and gainful employment opportunity for our youth. So what I try to do in figure one is to uh, show the proportions of our youth that are unemployed. For example, between 15 and 24, 40% of them are the group of unemployed. Then between 25 years to 44 years, we have 36% of them that are unemployed. So if you add the two groups together, from 15 years to 45 years old, which are the group of the youth, you discover that about 76% of them are not employed. And that's a time bomb. When youth are not engaged, idle hands are the devil's workshop. So they can engage in crime, they can engage in other negative activities. Another thing I try to demonstrate in table one, I use the example of Nigeria for Africa. You see that there is a kind of mismatch between educational level and unemployment. The idea is that the more you are employed, the less should be, the more you are educated, the less should be unemployment. But it's like the reverse is the case. If you look at the proportions of the people that attended tertiary education, 24%, almost one quarter of them are not employed. Whereas the average for the whole world is 14%. So there's a challenge. The direct information from here is that it's like the education is not leading to employment. And so there may be a problem with the curriculum that people, when they come out of the university, come out of the colleges, they are supposed to be able to get employment. But if what they were trained is not needed on in the market, in the employment market, so there will be a challenge. And that will be a reflection of what we have in table 1. Now, the next thing we want to discuss about is the causes of the youth unemployment in Africa. Why do we have almost more than 60% of our youth not employed? And as I've said, this is a time bomb because if the youths are not employed, they can get themselves involved in some other activities. And so, number one is the rapid population growth. We know in Africa that the fertility rate is one of the highest in the world. And so when you are producing more children and there's no market for them, you produce them, they go to university, they go to school, and they come out, and there is no employment for them. So you are building up unemployment. The second reason is the expansions of educational system. We are having more university, more colleges of agric, colleges of education, but these people are not employed. So every year we produce graduates to the labor market. I think Nigeria, they supply almost 3 million graduates every year, and these people are not being employed. Graduates from colleges of education, graduates from polytechnics, graduates from university, and then you are just building them up every year. Another problem we see is the improper design of educational system to match education with employment opportunities. And you discover that in developed country, you even in some university, you see some company working with the department, working with the faculties to make sure that what the market needs is what is being generated from the university educational system or colleges of education or University of Applied Sciences. So the idea is to make sure that they are not just producing graduates for graduate's sake, they are producing graduates that will be able to match the employment opportunity in the market. Another problem is rural-urban migration. You discover that majority of people want to stay in urban area in Africa. And that's because it is in urban area you have access to social amenities, you have light, you have water. And so people in the rural area, the youth, they want to move to urban center. And so that build up unemployment in urban area. So that rural urban migration is a problem. Another thing is the nature of our production techniques. So if the production activities we are doing is just old, archaic systems, so the youth may not be attracted to that. And we can talk about that later. That's one of the problems with youth employment in agriculture, because the youth are tired, they are not interested in old and cutlass, old farming system that their father practice. So the other reason is the nature of, the government contradictory economic policy. You discover that in Africa, every government comes with different policies which are counterproductive. And so that can create a barrier to employment of the youth. Then there's existence of barrier of movement from one region to the other, from one country to the other to be employed within African system. That is the area where the new trade policy, trade agreement between African countries is targeting. But it has been a problem all this while. Then we go further to talk about the causes of low youth employment in agricultural sector. So, like, um, number one is the lack of we want to answer the reason why the youth are not being employed in the agricultural sector. Number one is the lack of interest in engaging in agricultural enterprises. As I've said, some of them perceive agricultural job as a low poverty ridden job. So they are not interested because they look at their father, their parent that has been on the farm, and demand was not making much. They were reading in poverty and all that. So it makes it unattractive for the youth to engage in that type of enterprise. Another thing is sufficient access to land. Well, land tenure system is a big problem in Africa. Then accessibility to credit and other valuable resources that may discourage a youth being engaged in agriculture. Then the other one is lack of adequate training and experience. There is a low agricultural mechanization. Agriculture is not mechanized, it's not modernized. So there's a lack of awareness of profitability of agricultural enterprises. This is very important. Some of them, they don't know that agriculture, there are some aspects of agricultural enterprises that are very profitable, and the youth should be interested in that. The next thing I want to show on table 2 is to look at whether the training these youth are receiving in their colleges, in their university, whether it is adequate for them to be employed in the agricultural sector, or whether it is adequate for them to set up agricultural enterprises, or whether there should be a modification to their curriculum of the training in the university on the colleges of education. If you look at the adequacy of training for employment in the agricultural sector, it's only 45% of them that agreed that the training they are being received is adequate for their employment, meaning that 55% of them did not agree that the training is adequate for them. Then will the training be enough for them to set up agricultural enterprises? It's only 44% of them that agree with that, meaning that 56% of them agree that the training is not adequate for them to set up agricultural enterprises on their own. So about 30% of them agreed that the more courses, curriculum should be modified for them to be gainfully employed, for them to set up their agricultural enterprises. Now, in table 3, we went further to ask which aspect of agriculture would the youth be interested in. We discovered that from the table, majority of them want to go into livestock production, animal production, followed by crop production, and likewise up to forest management, food processing, but majority of them would like to go into animal production. And that is understandable because animal production, for example, broiler, within 10 weeks, you can have your profit. It takes about 10 weeks to start rearing of the broiler to sell, and by the age of 10 weeks, they are ready for market, so you can easily get your money in returns. The only thing is that the risk is higher than the crop production. But this gives us idea of where the youth would likely to be to set up the type of enterprise they want to set up. The next table we look at which of the agricultural enterprises would they like to be employed. Just like in the table 3, a majority of them want to go to animal production. Just like in table 3, a majority of them want to go into animal production, followed up with crop production and all that. Now, the next thing we went out to do is what we presented on table 5. We look at the determinants. What are the factors that will make them to be willing to set up the agricultural enterprise? We discovered that people that go to colleges or university. I mean, people that attend college of agriculture, they are more willing to set up agricultural enterprises than people that went to university. Then what another thing that can attract them to become fully employed is subsidy. If the resources are gotten to them at subsidized rates, they got the land at subsidized rates, they got the fertilizer, they got the seed at the subsidized rate. So this thing will attract them to set up their own agricultural enterprise. Another important factor is their background, family experience. If their parents are farmer, if their parents are farmers, there is a probability that they will be interested in farming. Now, most importantly is the incentives to encourage youth participation in agricultural sectors. We want to know what are the things that will attract them to be engaged in agricultural sectors, either in setting up their businesses in agricultural enterprises or being employed in agricultural sector. Because we should not forget the problem is that we have graduates that are trained in agricultural enterprises, and when they graduated, as more than 70% of them, they don't have anything to do for the first 6 years of their graduation. So we should be interested in what can we do to encourage this group of youth to engage in agricultural enterprises, either as a form of employment or as a form of job creation themselves. The most important thing they said is they need adequate training in university and colleges. About 73% of them, they opted for, they wanted adequate training in agricultural enterprises, in agricultural sectors. And this is very important that to say, if you remember in the table we presented before, about more than 50% of them claim that the training they are receiving in the university and colleges of agriculture is not enough for them to stand on their own. It's not enough for them to be employed in agricultural sectors or enterprises. And so that is very important for us that, and for the government and for the educational institution to know that this training they are receiving is not sufficient for them to be gainfully employed or to set up their enterprises. And that's why you see that when majority of them graduated from colleges or from university, they are not employed. And so I think we need to go back to the curriculum to make sure that the training is related to job creations or employment, to equip them to be able to stand on their own, to set up their enterprises or to be engaged in agricultural enterprises. The second thing they want is financial support in terms of soft loan, credit, startup capitals, and all that. The third one is the provisions of land. Majority of them, as we have said, land tenure system is a problem. So they don't have access to land. Even if they have the idea, they have the training, and there's no land to practice it. I think the government should be thinking of something like that. And the rest of them, they opted for the provisions of basic amenities. In conclusion, we want to say that people that attended colleges of agriculture are more willing to be engaged in agricultural sectors in terms of job creation, in terms of being employed in agricultural sector than people that attended universities. Then the subsidy of input is positively related to willingness to set up agricultural activities. So if there is a input subsidy in form of seed, in form of agrochemical, in form of land, these graduates will be more willing to set up agricultural enterprises. Then infrastructures and skills enhancement is needed to maintain the agricultural sector job creation capacity. And so there is need for skill enhancement, skill acquisitions, as we have said, as related to their training in the university or training in the colleges of agriculture. Then the provisions of capital startup and support system can significantly increase the number of youth engaged or employed in agricultural sectors. Finally, we said that the youth can be incentivized to engage in agriculture sector through provisions of basic infrastructures, adequate training in school, favorable government policies, provisions of land, and financial support. Thank you very much. I think I have to stop there so that we can take some questions.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that insight on how we can motivate, how we can encourage youth to take up agriculture as a business and not just, as you said last time, as a hoe and cutlass. Before we get into questions, to come back to what you have said, we would like to have our jingle so that we can allow Prof to catch his breath again, and then we come back for the second phase of the program. Okay, we listen to you so keenly. I want to acknowledge the participation already of Afi Korahuma, Eno Magi, Nyoke Brian, Marie De Caro, and Cheryl Tatabot, who have been very active, and I'm sure they followed you so keenly. I noted some points down that I will be developing as we will be asking the questions, but I want to begin with the very first point that is so direct with how we can motivate youth. And given that when you presented, we could get from your presentation that the problem that youths are not actually interested in agriculture seeing the profits from these the practices of awareness. Youth, you know, that you derive to inside, but I would like you, Prof, again, to throw some light on the profitability of agriculture. Youth would like to know where money comes from in agriculture, because when we talk of agriculture, all they see is walking under the sun, looking dirty, so unkempt, with a hoe in your hand, with a cutlass, but they don't or they can't actually lay their hands on where it can be profitable, apart from just subsistence farming that most of them know, that most of us know as we did far back in our villages. How profitable can agriculture actually be to the youth, Prof?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think agriculture is one of the most profitable enterprise in the world. But the problem is that many people are not aware of that because of the past idea they had. And when they were with their parents, they used cutlasses and hoe. But now there are different aspects of agriculture. Let me take livestock, for example, and take broilers. When you take broilers, uh, within 10 weeks, you can raise broilers and take them to the market and sell. And then you are sure of about 30% returns on your investment. So number one, within 10 weeks, you get your money back. Within 10 weeks, you have 30% of whatever you invested on the farm. So there are different aspects like that. Or you take fishery, for example, fishery, the returns on investment of fishery is greater than that of the broilers. Then you take that of layers. Layers, the return on investment is more than that, and is even throughout a year. The only thing is that take about 6 months for your broiler, for your layers to start laying. So, but I use the example of broiler that within 10 weeks, you get 30% of your investment. Which bank want to give you that type of returns on your investment? So I think our youth needs to take note of that. Then the major challenge is that uh, the youth, they need to, they are attracted to, they are attracted to something colorful. Youth are attracted to something colorful. So if you want the youth to be engaged in agricultural enterprise, it's not only the profitability, but we have to make it colorful. What I mean by colorful is that let them know that agriculture now is now modernized. You have a situation where you can use tractors. You have a situation, even the broiler we are talking about, you have a situation where there is a feeder. Feeder is that they electrically can be powered that will feed the animals. You don't need to go there and be giving them feed one by one. We have electric power that can give them water. They kind of sprinkling. So we have electric power that can even collect their feces, their excreta, that can scrape it. So all these are what is available now, but they need to be told that things have gone beyond what they know before. Then even the layers, we have the electric power that can feed the layers. We have the egg collectors. We have the excreta collectors that can do that neatly, and that is very colorful. So if we introduce our youth to see that colorful things, we demonstrate it. We can give them an example of a farm where this is done electrically, where these things are done collectively. The eggs are very neat, the beds are very neat, the farm is very neat. I think they will be attracted, but I think we need to let them know that things are being modernized, and we have to let them see this modern aspect, the colorful aspect of agriculture. We have a situation now where you can use drone to spray chemical on your farm, drone to do many things. You know, a lot of things being done, and our youth in the African continent, we should not be left behind. And that's one of the role we are playing now. We want them to see the colorful aspect of agriculture, the profitable aspect of agriculture. In Germany, here, most of the most profitable, I mean, most of the wealthiest region, the wealthiest states are the agricultural based states in Germany here. And so that should be presented to the youth, that awareness, that education, I think we need to let them know. But most importantly, I want to emphasize that we need to modernize our agricultural system, the mechanization, how things can be done in a neat way, in a mechanical way, in an electrical way. And so with that, a serious-minded youth will be interested in things like that.
Okay, thank you, Prof. We have a question that is highlighted on the screen. This is from Mary De Caro, who says, how can we motivate youth when we are abroad? I think she's talking about the diaspora, how diaspora or what role diaspora can play to motivate youth to get so involved in agricultural business.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mrs. Ray. Mary, what just come to my mind is that just like where diasporans are doing some other sectors, let me give you an example. We have some countries now where the diasporans, they go back to Africa, they give them hospital laboratory equipment, hospital equipment. They set up. I was watching a case like that where I think it should be in Cameroon. So where they give them this hospital equipment and all that, they were able to equip the hospital for them, and I love that. So likewise, we should do the same thing for agricultural sectors. Not only that, we are thinking of getting equipment for them, but we need to go back. The first thing is to reorientate, is to educate, is to demonstrate to them that agriculture can be a very gainful employment. We demonstrate that to them through video, through some practical things. And because if you are buying the hospital equipment for them, which is very good, but if they are not well fed, in fact, major problem of Africa is food insecurity. Major problem is because nutrition is our major problem. When people are not well fed, it is then they can succumb to sickness. There are some sickness that will not come inside you when you are well fed, when your immune system is built by well feeding, by good nutrition. And so as we are thinking about doing for the health sectors, we should be thinking of how to do that for agricultural sector. But the first thing we have to go home is to go and demonstrate to them that agriculture is not the way they thought it is being done before. Now there are different ways where agriculture is being modernized. Then we do that demonstration to them, then we persuade them. Then later we can be thinking of, okay, what can we do? Can we set up a demonstration farm? It may not be too big a farm, but in that farm, we can say we want to raise broiler for 10 weeks to see, so that people will come around and see that this is what is being done. The feeding is done electrically, the watering is done by mechanical, electrically. That things are being modernized. So the starting point is the level of awareness to let our people know that it's not the way it used to be. Things have been different. So when we start from that level of education, then we can scale up and then demonstrate that this is possible.
Thank you, Prof. In your explanation, I am seeing still some strings. Let me put it as strings because you talk of hospital equipment that are being donated now in Africa or in a continent, which helps maintain the standard of health of our citizens. But then you will discover that in cooperatives that we have in Africa, most of the times, it is usually the elderly people who manage the cooperative, who hold posts of responsibility in these cooperatives, and it makes it difficult for youths, for their voices to be heard. And now you are talking about buying equipments, farming equipments, of course, to distribute to youths. What is the groundwork that has to be done, given that these youths are not involved in the cooperatives through which these donations have to come? How do you think, therefore, that we can involve them fully in these cooperatives so that the donations you give will actually go to the youth? Because if not, the elderly people will still collect the equipment and it will not reach the youth, and we will still be talking about discouragement, non-motivation of youth to engage actually in agricultural business.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think generally our youth, they don't know the power they have in Africa. As we have been saying, 60% of them, 60% of the population in typical African country they are the youth. So they have power, but they don't know. So the first thing is that they need to come together, not even only for farming, even for political reasons. If all the youth organize themselves together, they can change many things in Africa. So, but the problem is that they are dissipating their energy on things that are not important. So there must be opinion leader among them. To start with the opinion leader, there's one that many of them know they respect. So that's an opinion leader. So that opinion leader can ask a youth, let's sit down. Things are not the way it's supposed to be. Let's even look at the politics. If all of us decide to vote for a right political party, that party will win. Because 60% is greater than 20% or 35%. So, but our youth need that orientation, that they have that power. They have a number. So they need to organize that number on a productive way, not only even agriculture. So in any area they can make a change in government, change in policy. So they form that group, they come together, say, okay, this is our group, then we can call it development union, youth development union, or whatever name. So from there, we look at what is our problem, how do we organize our energy, how do we get ourselves together. Before you know, the elderly people, the adult people, they will begin to respect them, that these people, they are making sense. And so whatever they want to do, they will give them a chance that, okay, let the youth take over. So, but the first thing is that the youth have to know that they have that power. Number is a power. And then we need to organize ourselves together so that we synchronize our energy together, and then we'll be able to make a lot of advocacy, we'll be able to make a lot of change in that continent. So we need to organize ourselves, we need to put our energy together, we need to be thinking of something productive, how to make a change in the continent. I think that would be very good.
Okay, I take down the youths have much power and that they need to be organized. They are not organized, and that is why their voices are not heard in cooperatives. That is why they are not full partakers in cooperatives from where they can influence agriculture in the rural areas. I come again to the causes of low youth employment in agricultural sector, and I take this point where you talked of land tenure systems. We know that in Africa, lands are owned by the elderly, lands are owned by families, and it becomes very difficult for youth to get hold of land or to own land. And older people will prefer to hold onto this land till their dying days, till the last drop of their blood. If they prefer not to walk the land, but let the land remain there like that. How can we educate them to be able to be loose with the way they grip and grab land and hold land so that youths can have access to these lands? What are those ways that maybe youths can motivate them so that they can be cultivating this land? Because land tenure is a very big problem. Youth may be motivated, but they don't have the land. So how do they go about this?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. As you have said, land tenure system is a big problem, and that is why in Africa you have 60% of uncultivated land. The land is there, so we should begin to ask ourselves, why is it that nobody cultivated this land? And it's because of the land tenure system. It is when you go to that land you discover that the land is not free as we thought. And so it has to do with, number one, when we organize ourselves together as a youth, the youth group, and then we begin to look at the problem. And one of the major problems to tackle is that land tenure system. Why is it that this land is not being cultivated? And so when we do that, then we'll be able to make advocacy on land tenure system. Like in Nigeria, now they say the land belongs to the government. Every land in Nigeria belongs to the government. But in reality, when you get there, you discover that it's not as it's supposed to be. So what we need to do, number one, is that we need to really talk to the government. Have to make, like in Nigeria now, that it's a law. Like since 1978 that the land belongs to the government, but why is it not? It's not practically applied. So that now they have to enforce that law so that the youth can go to the government and say, I need land. And where the government have to come in is that land cannot be in form of subsidy, because we told you that the youth said they need subsidy. So that subsidy does not need to be money, but land can be a subsidy. That if you want to cultivate as a youth, we give you land free of charge. And then there is a document, there is a legal backing to that. And so that number one will solve the problem of the land tenure, because now there is a backing of the government. Any African country that have not done that, I think they need to do that to make sure that the government take charge of that. And then the land will not become a subsidy to any enterprising youth or anybody that is willing to cultivate the land. Because for how long are we going to leave this land there? As you have said, some of these farmers are aging, some of them are dead, and the land is still there. And this is a young farmer, enterprising one that want to cultivate, and he doesn't have access. And so to even encourage them, that will be done, that the land is not a subsidy for you. If you need 10 acres of land, we can give you. Then there will be a documentation from the government. There's a legal backing to that. So the farm, we can make use of that farm, and we can make use of that land, and that will be very fantastic. And so we need to look at that, because the international organization will just be telling you that 60% of uncultivated land in the world is in Africa. So we should not be celebrating that figure. What should be celebrating is that we want to make use of our land productively. So government have to come in, the youth have to come in, and all of us have to be aware of that things cannot continue like this. And another problem we have in Africa, generally in our farming system, is that we have small land. 90% of the land is less than, of a farmer per capita land is less than 1 acre. The farmer has less than 1 acre of land. By here, a farmer can have 40 acres of land. Just one farmer it's like the whole village in Africa belongs to one person. And so that is what can even make it profitable. Somebody cultivating 40 hectares of land is different from somebody cultivating 1 hectare of land. And so that is why we can talk about land farming, commercial farming system, not this subsistence one or less than 1 acre of land. 90% of farmers in Africa have less than 1 acre of land. But in the developed country, you discover we can have 100 acres, 40 acres, just one farmer. So, and the reason why we have this small parcel of land per farmer is because of the land tenure system, because that hectare belongs to him. After that one, it belongs to another family. The next hectare belongs to another family. So that's why the land tenure systems we have to really modernize it and make sure that things are done properly if we really want to commercialize and make agriculture profitable and attractive to the youth.
Thank you, Prof. I just wanted to relate you to what we have on the screen. That how big should a land be to make agriculture quite profitable? What is the
No,
average quantity or largeness of land that can make agriculture profitable?
the bigger the better. The bigger the better. There is no, you cannot say you cannot say, okay, this is a particular land, this is the amount of land that a farmer needs to make it profitable. The bigger is the better. It depends on the capacity of that farmer. And the good thing is that if you are able to cultivate 10 acres of land, 10 hectares of land this year, you can expand it to 20 hectares next year. You can expand, you can continue to expand it. And by the time you commercialize it, you can now you can even be employing more people. So you can be employing more people. So there is that, there's what they call economies of scale. So, but the economies of scale is that the bigger the better. Then you can be expanding every time, every time. There's no limit to where anybody can go. And so, but what we need to know is that Africa now, a farmer has less than 1 hectare of land. 90% of the farmer have less than 1 hectare. And so what can a 1 hectare man, what can they produce compared with somebody that have average of 40 hectares per land? And so that is what we should be thinking about. That the profitability is related to your scale.
Okay.
Somebody selling something of €1 is different from somebody that have selling something of €10. So the bigger, the better.
All right, and we can relate that equally, that the bigger the better, and equally that will depend on the type of crop that you
Yeah,
are actually producing. And
yeah.
Mary de Caro says that most elders hold so tight to the land because when the young farmers gain ownership of this land, all they want to sell, what they want to do is to give away the land, sell the land. Don't you think? I think that should be a reason already that Mary is giving there for the old people wanting to hold the land. But today we are encouraging the old people who are owning the lands and equally encouraging the youths that when they have these lands, they should cultivate. If they are taking the land for cultivation, let them cultivate the land, and they will discover that the amount of money that they sell the land will just be gained in less than 1 2 years because farming is actually so profitable. So they should do well to keep the lands when they are given to them or handed to them by their parents. And we said that land in Africa is mostly owned by families, and sometimes you are given a land to cultivate. And once you cultivate the land, like what happens around us here, a member of the family gives you a land that is standing there, mosquitoes are killing people around. Once you clean the place, you plant, they allow the crops to grow. Maybe if they are too generous, they will allow you to harvest even once, and then another family member comes in and tells you that no, we want to use this land, and you are leaving the land with crops that you have planted and that you have not even recovered the money that you spent in doing that. And that actually do discourage many people who want to get into farming. And we are encouraging them, though, that they should always do the negotiations correctly, and so that they will gain some profit from their farm. Prof, you talked of when you were talking about, I think, motivation for farmers or people who get into farming. You talked about the background, and you made mention of people who grew up farming, who have parents who were farmers. I want to take you back to our own situation where we grew up with parents who were farming, but we never saw them get quite much from these farming practices because we did the work all the times, they did the selling all the times, and we did not actually see what we were gaining because we were the one clearing the farms, planting, weeding, picking the coffee, and drying, carrying them to the cooperatives, and we only see our own parents coming to sell. Do you think that can really motivate somebody whose parents were farmers and was subjected to that type of treatment?
And so the what is coming to my mind is that that should be taken as that time of following your parents, to do this, we should not see it as a big burden, but we see it as a learning curve, as a learning time, and because you are gaining something from there. So from there now, if you have the enough experience, then you can go and start your own. So you two now, you are the one that will be making the profit on your own, but at least you need to start somewhere. So we should look at that as just a learning curve, as a learning experience, as the reward for your labor. The reward for your labor is that you are gaining something, you are learning how to make it, how to do it, so that when you start your own, you are not going to fall, you are not going to make a mistake, you will do it in a better way. Then you can tell, yeah, that's what they call apprenticeship in Africa. So if even if you want to be selling spare parts, motor parts in Africa, there are apprentices that will come to you, and then they will learn how to do it. And from there, some of them are even bigger and better than their master, the person they learn from. So we should think about that. That yeah, this is what I'm gaining from them. I'm gaining experience. I'm learning how to do it. And I'm just thinking about it that Africa, we see our children as a part of the labor force. That's what they call family labor. So they don't have money to hire the labor, so you are part of that labor supply for the farmers. And so that is what actually is happening. And from there, your fathers will be able to feed you, will be able to send you to school, will be able to pay your school fees, because never asking where are you getting money to pay our school fees. So that is with the investment. There is a investment on you. And I discovered that, for example, people I'm close to, people that their parents have cocoa farms. Like there is a state in Nigeria where majority, almost every house there is a professor. Almost every house there is a particular state. People that are from Nigeria, they know that state. Almost everybody there must be one professor in one house in that place. What happens is that majority of them are cocoa farmers. So they have money to train their children to any level of education. And so those professors now, they are getting the reward. But when they are following their fathers to farm, they will be grumbling. They are not happy about it. But now they are now become professors. So that's their reward, which is far greater. Their father was never a professor, but they are professors. So I just want us to take it as a learning curve, as a learning experience, as a kind of background for us to be able to do our own thing better.
Thank you, Prof. I think my heart is calm now that you have actually revisited this point, because I used to feel very bitter given the
Yeah.
type of work I did. You plow the sun, and sometimes my grandfather is just standing around giving instructions. I'm asking yourself, this old man is just standing around. When he can
Yeah.
do this thing, then he will come around and shout, and you are just telling me that that was labor force that
Yeah.
we were supplying to the family, which actually became cheaper because if they had to pay people to do the work,
Yeah.
the income of the family will be reduced, whereas we were there to do the work. And you have cited a state in Nigeria where most of the families have children who are professors, and thanks to agriculture, thanks to the labor force that they were present to give to the family. And I think children, youths should be encouraged with this clarification that Prof has given, that Professor Alabi has given this evening, this day, because most of them grumble when they have to go to the farm. In fact, when you talk about going to the farm, especially on weekends, it's like you have spoiled their weekend. They
Yeah.
feel so disgruntled, they feel so angry. Some even think that it is child abuse that you're asking them to go to the farm. They think that it is child abuse. Prof, thank you so much. And I think that the youths who are listening to us must have forgiven their parents, because I know that some of them have been so bitter and had their parents really at a very difficult point. Thank you so much for that powerful submission. And in your, I will come to that later. We equally see the volatility of prices of farm and agricultural produce, both at home and in the foreign market. That this actually makes you to think that farming is so much of risk. I take example that we have in some of the countries, or some of the continents in, sorry, some of the countries in Africa, where because of the corona pandemic, most of the crops have not been able to be exported. Fruits like tomatoes are sold around so cheaply. We have watermelon, pineapples, plantains equally that used to be sent out of the country. You'd think that the prices are not stable in the market. And this, when you talk to most of them, they feel so discouraged and are thinking that farming is not the best option. A word of encouragement for these our youths who are already with their hands on the plow and are thinking to abandon this very lucrative business, Prof.
Yeah, price volatility is a part of the risk. Not only in agriculture, even major sectors. Price volatility is a challenge, but one can leverage on that. One can make use of that. One can You can even benefit from the price volatility. For example, what we just need to do is to improve on our processing. Processing is that you have that product, then you can process it to the final product. Let's say you take cocoa, for example, then we process our cocoa to chocolate. The price of cocoa in the world market is more volatile than the price of chocolate. In fact, I was reading a report recently that the annual profit in chocolate industry is $100 billion per year. So the price of chocolate is more stable. It's not as volatile as the price of cocoa seed. The reason is because when the market is not good for chocolate, you wait because it cannot spoil easily like cocoa seed. So that's why the processing comes in. When you are able to convert your product to another product, which can be we can have a long lifespan or storage span, then you benefit from volatility. You take it to the market when price is very good. I remember my cousin, what we used to do is that there's a time in Africa that palm oil, the price used to be very low during the production season. Then during the dry season, the price used to be very high. So what we do is that we buy the palm oil, we store it inside there's a storage for it, about 50 liters, 50 liters. We buy many of them like that, and then we store it. Then around November, that is time we bring it out, and then we make almost double of the price of that, almost double of the price of that thing that we bought. So meaning that there's a price volatility, but we are benefiting from that price volatility. So that's where our processing, that's where the issue of storage facilities comes in. And so we need to leverage on that. We should not be thinking that every problem is a problem. So we should be thinking that this is a problem, but somebody we have to make best use of it, as I've said, by processing, by improving our storage facilities. Then there is a need for market information. As I've said, all many years now, you know that there's a time where the price of palm oil will be very low. It has more than 10 years now, it has been like that. So you need that market information, then you can now buy when the price is very low, then you sell when the price is very high. So they call it price speculation. And so the youth, in fact, you can decide that that's what you want to be doing. Just buy the product, you have a good storage facility, store it when the price is very low, sell it when the price is very, very, very high. But the issue is that you must have a storage facility where you can store it. You must be able to add value to it. You must have a market information, just like I told you for palm oil. We can have for the product like that. There's a certain time of the year where maize will be very cheap, and then you can buy the maize, process it, store it, sell it when the price is very high. So number one, you are doing something. Number two, you are making money out of that price volatility. So these are some of the areas the youth can even be thinking about. That you may not even go into maize production, but what you are doing is that your own is that you are creating storage facilities for maize, you are adding value to maize, and you are selling maize. So that's the part of agricultural enterprise. So if you don't want to go to direct farming, one can go into that. But we need processing, we need storage facility, we need market information on some of these some of these products, and we'll be able to maximize and make use of that price volatility.
Thank you. And I surely will be answering the question that is on the screen, that how can youths get the machines? And I think that if youths are organized, like Professor Alabi said already, in cooperatives and make their voices heard and take the positions that they are due to take in these cooperatives, they will be able to lobby for machines. They will be able to apply for machines. And when these machines come, their farming will be more mechanized. And I want to appreciate Prof so very much for the way he answered the problem of price volatility. And it was noted there that not every problem is a problem. And all the problems that we thought that were here that are discouraging the youths from taking agriculture as a profession, as a business, actually are solutions to the problems that they are raising, apart from the training problem that our old people still hold so hard. We are encouraging them to relinquish these lands to the youth, and equally encouraging and advising the youth that land is, some families have just that land, and so when you take the land, you need to keep the land for the next generation, work the land, farm the land, and make sure that you can equally hand it to another generation. And still on price volatility, Prof, you say the youth should be able to transform these products, farm products, so that they can be sold when prices get high. So while they are looking at price volatility as a problem, as a discouragement, it is instead to their favor that they can change, they can transform these farm products so that they are sold when there is scarcity. Thank you, Prof, so much. Time is always not on our side when we have so much to talk about. We want to already thank those who are following us live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. We are on agriculture. We want to see how this can provide quality life for our citizens. And we are seeing from the very first program that we had here on agriculture how we could get finances for agriculture, how we can produce some of the things that we get from our fruits here in the continent. We are seeing so far that agriculture is one of those sectors that we can get involved in. And I bet you will not regret, because whatever you produce or whatever you put in the ground, it will equally yield a harvest. And we are seeing agriculture as
Yeah, thank you very much. So I
is
think
going
we
to
need
come
to.
out double, tripled, and in tenfolds even. Because when we plan to see that all the statistics are showing that by 2030, about 6 out of 10 youths will be moving to town. But we are moving to town and leaving the farms uncultivated. Our parents are already aging. They don't have strength again to cultivate, and we have to take the relay. We don't have to give up, because giving up is never an option. I want to thank Prof again so much for being very available. Every time we put you on a topic, you prepare so well, and the presentation is always so marvelously done. And our viewers must be happy that we have a resource person like you. We thank you so very much. The Some Point family thanks you so much for being there, and together we can do it, because we are what we are because of you. And that is the Ubuntu spirit that we cultivate. And we are hoping that youths who are watching us will equally share the link so that many youths can come on board. And we will continue to promote the Agenda 2063, so that by the time we are getting there, all what is aspired to have in the different aspirations will already be enjoyed by us. And we are hoping that it comes so soon if everybody puts their hands on the plow. Our hands are already on it, and we are not retreating. Thank you, Prof, so much. We will be
Thank you.
ending here today and coming up again shortly next week with another topic still on agriculture, because we want to make youth to see the need for agriculture. Prof is there, and he's always giving us the insight how agriculture can be profitable, how it can be sustainable, and how it can provide us a livelihood. Prof, one word to say bye bye in few seconds.
Yeah, just to say that agriculture is profitable and is the way for Africa, and we are going to make it and do it together. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Agriculture is
Uh,
profitable, and it is the way for Africa. Thank you, Prof. I leave you with that wonderful word from Prof. We
Thank
can
you.
survive just
Yeah,
with
bye.
agriculture. Thank you very much. And that is how we had it for today on the debate on Sumpon Global TV. Prof, goodbye and see you surely.
Bye. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.